All right, well, I'll try and talk to the screen. Unfortunately, I don't have it on my monitor here, so I'll have to kind of go back and forth to the screen. Just a little bit about Intierra before we start. As Hector said, we are a database company, and we do monitor global exploration and mining around the world. Our database has all of these features in it, so we have greater than 40,000 companies, more than 34,000 active projects. And we track all commodities, and we track right from grassroots projects through to mining projects. We just recently purchased Raw Materials Group in Sweden and Bloomsbury Mineral Economics in London, just add more depth to our databases. So we are now truly the largest mining database and source of information in the world. So let's begin by having a look at the mining industry globally. We look into our database of those 34,000 active projects. You can see where Mexico sits. It's in number 4th position globally for all mining and exploration. So these are all projects from grassroots, as I said, through to mines. Canada and Australia are the two powerhouses for exploration, but certainly Mexico has a lot going on with that many projects. But if we look at it if we look at the size of Mexico and we compare the amount of projects on a per hectare density basis, you can see here where Mexico, and you can see the concentration of projects. So you can see that Mexico has the most amount of concentration of projects for the amount of ground that's available for exploration. Obviously you have a large area down in Brazil and South America, but certainly per hectare, Mexico is right out front. And where does the mining revenue come from? These are some figures we've put together. These are 2010 mine revenue figures. So you can see it's $16 billion worth of production value broken down by commodity. And then on the map, you can see the thematic mapping where the bulk of the production comes in the various areas in Mexico. Here's the distribution of the projects, of the active projects within Mexico. And we break them down by grassroots, which has no drilling on it, exploration targets, or exploration projects that have at least one drill hole, but not very much drilling. And then the advanced exploration, which has significant drilling and usually a resource attached to it. And what this shows is that there is a very, very strong, healthy pipeline in Mexico. So the very first two rows, the grassroots and the exploration, account for 71% of all projects that have had not a lot of significant drilling on them. So there's still a huge potential of projects in the pipeline in Mexico. And here we're going to look at companies that are these are listed companies that are working in Mexico. So these are companies that are listed on a stock exchange other than the Mexican one. And you can see that there's 277 there, but Canadians or companies listed on Canadian exchanges certainly love to explore in Mexico. So 79% of all the companies that are listed that are exploring in Mexico are based on the Canadian exchanges. Now we'll look at some drilling statistics. These are the number of projects that were drilled in 2011. You can see once again this correlates with the first chart we had. So Mexico is clearly in 4th place with 132 projects. Now these are projects that have released results to the financial markets, and that's how we're gauging all of this. There would have been more drilling by companies that were private and have not announced results. But one way of tracking it is by looking at results that were announced to the financial markets in one way or another. And if we want to look at where all of these targets are, you can see the dots represent all of those projects. So good distribution right across Mexico. If we look and compare drilling stats on a quarterly basis, so if we start back in the 3rd quarter of 2009 and go to the end of 2011, you can see drilling has increased on a almost steady basis. There was a bit of a dip in the 3rd quarter of 2011, but if we look back in Q3 of 2009, there was only 21 projects that were drilling at that time. And the fourth quarter of 2011, there were 63. So drilling has tripled on a quarterly basis in Mexico. It shows you the amount of activity and the amount of confidence, because drilling says that companies have confidence in a country or in an area by actually going in and drilling. And this is a representation of the commodities that were being drilled by the number of projects. So you can see that gold and silver were the top two commodities. Now these projects could announce both gold and silver assays or copper gold assays. So there is some double counting there in the numbers. Let's quickly look at some reserve resource figures. We just quickly took a look at globally, if we look at all of the reserve or resource data that's in the ground, so in situ data, and just applied a total metal value to it with no economic parameters, not massaging the numbers at all. But if we just look at physically what's in the ground, you can see Mexico is in 5th position there, but there's almost, you can see the scale and the size, so it's almost $900 billion worth of metal value. Of course, all of that will possibly not be mined unless gold or silver increase significantly. But if we just look at it as a total metal value and compare it with other countries, it just gives us an idea of the resources that are available. And in the past 2 years, if we look at some of these resources, some recent estimates that have come out from initial resource estimates from 43-101s or from feasibility studies, just in the past 2 years, 4.2 million ounces and over 600 million ounces of silver have been announced as being new resources that are possibly going to be mined. And you can see some of the more recent highlights on the screen of some of the projects that have either just initial announcements or have upgraded their reserve announcements or resource announcements in 2011 and in 2012. So very impressive. And many of those companies, as you know, are in the audience today. And in 2010, Mexico became the top silver producer in the world. It overtook Peru finally with 124.4 million ounces of silver. And let's just look at some financial data now, just to give you round this off. If we look at projects that are currently under evaluation, say in the feasibility stage or construction stage, if you look at the CapEx or capital expenditures that would be required to put these projects into production, you can see that it would be over 10 billion or 12 billion if you include the newly operating after 2007. And there's a breakdown of the type of projects and the CapEx that would be required to put these projects into production. And if we look at it and break this down on a commodity basis, you can see the CapEx required by commodity. So gold being out front, being the number one. And these are the locations of all those projects that we are talking about that would require CapEx expenditures. And the size of the dots represent the amount of CapEx that is required. Obviously, one of the ways that people are able to explore is to raise money in the equity markets to be able to further what they are doing. And there are various ways of using the proceeds from that. So we look at the amount of money that was raised in 2011 by listed company on the equity markets. You can see it's over $500 million was raised, and the categories for which it's going to be used, and you can see the bulk of it is used for development of reserves and resources. So those are the advanced exploration, the pre-feasibility, the feasibility studies that people are trying to get a resource so that they can bring these projects on stream. And once again, if we look at it on a per commodity basis, you can see the commodities. So once again, gold, silver, being out front with $224 million. And here's a map showing all the projects that money was raised for that were going to be used for exploration in Mexico. So very, very healthy. Lots going on, lots of projects going on in Mexico. And lastly, I just want to end the presentation. We hope this brief overview has given you kind of a sense of how prolific the Mexican mining scene is, how active it is. And we've just announced a partnership with Intierra and the Geological Survey of Mexico. And in this survey, or in this agreement, we're going to partner with the SGM in helping to provide access to the land tenure data and other data to the rest of the world. We're going to be able to take that data, we're going to be able to overlay it within our database. We have an interactive mapping interface. We'll be able to, all of the companies that subscribe to our database will be able to see the land concessions and the land tenure in relationship to project data, geophysical data, geochemical data, and all the other data that we have in our database. Plus, we'll be able to sell the digital data forward for the SGM and generate some revenue for them as well. And we're also going to be promoting projects that they have available for joint venture through sale and joint venture that they are making available, and we'll have those listed on our website as well. And this is just a couple of screenshots of what that data will look like with some of our data overlaid on it, with the various lease data and the project data in there. So that's it. Like I said, very, very brief. I hope it was just to set the stage for the rest of the morning, and I thank you for your time.